Now adjust the volume control so that the sound can be heard in all parts of the room.
This is the Protect Your Assets podcast.
Mr. Sandman,
You get the idea?
bring me a dream.
It's on the internet.
Make him the cutest that I've ever seen.
Go on.
Give him two lips like
It's like no cheese I've ever
and
tasted.
tell him that his lonesome
Here's the
nights
Sandman.
are over, Sandman.
You, yes, you. I want to ask you a question. Are you going to retire next year? Well, if you are, then today's show is just for you. It's all coming up next. So stick around. Good morning. I'm David Hollander, your host, and this is Protect Your Assets. For those of you just joining us for the first time, welcome. People around here, they call me the Sandman. That's because I help my listeners sleep well at night while answering all the financial, legal, tax questions that you might have. Listen, doing something for the first time, something you've never done before, well, it can be exciting. Get your heart moving for sure, but it can also be scary. I'm not talking about skydiving. I'm talking about retiring. Not sure what to do or what steps you should take, like what you do with your 401k or your health savings account. What happens to your unused sick time or your PTO benefits? Can you even afford to retire right now? Listen, even if you love your job, don't leave these questions unanswered. You've tuned in at just the right time because today, as we're getting right near the end of the year here, I'm going to share some ideas if you're thinking about calling it quits. So don't go at this blindly. So listen to the entire show as I'll share the secrets that we've learned. Are you thinking of retiring? Well, coming up next, what are the types of vesting schedules that you might have access to, and will you actually get that money? Find out what you need to know. You're listening to the Protect Your Assets show. We'll be right back.
Take the first step toward reaching your financial goals and get the information that can help you live a confident retirement. That first step is going to pyaevents.com and signing up for our next free event. That's pyaevents.com. Now, back to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, the Sandman.
Welcome back. I am David Hollander. They call me the Sandman around here because I help you keep more of what you work so hard for. They're always changing the rules on us, taxes, all these things. What do you need to do? Well, if you're thinking about leaving work, maybe it was just a remote thought in your mind, you might be able to do it. If you're just joining us today, we're talking about what you need to consider before you actually let them know you're done. There's quite a few benefits that might be there. And you don't want to leave that money on the table, particularly when you work so hard to get it. We've been doing in December all these workshops around tax planning. We're seeing lots of clients and helping them look at all the returns that have happened this year and restructuring things so we can pay less in taxes next year. That's the plan, and hopefully you're doing that right now too, because you still have some time left this month to knock it out, because once 12/31 rolls around, it's over. That's it. So this past Wednesday night, we were doing our Tax Smart Retirement at Trader Vic's, one of my favorite places. I love that place. Still is the same. And I think the food's even a little better. You know, like the poo-poos, you know? Those are still amazing, but the dinner entrees now, I mean, it's another level. So we were there having a great time, and Dave comes walking up to me, and it turns out Dave and I knew each other a few years ago, and he approached me and said, yeah, I remember when the parents said, yeah, how you doing? Anyway, we started talking about his company that he's been working for over 25 years, and that they might be letting him go. And he just can't stand the stress right now, and he's thinking about retiring before he gets laid off. So we were talking about his 401k, and then we got into matching. And when I asked him if his company matched, he said he thought so, but he wasn't really sure how that all worked out. And so I went on to explain, well, Dave, if you have a 401k, your employer may add money on your behalf, commonly known as matching contributions. For example, the company may provide 50 cents for every dollar you save, up to 6% of your annual salary. And he asked me, well, how does that work? And I said, okay, let me give you an example, because I don't ever get in specifics. I said, let's say you earn $100,000 a year and you stash away $6,000 in your 401k per year. That's the full 6%. Well, your employer would contribute an additional $3,000 for the match per year that you do that. Oh, okay. But if you quit, well, that might change things a little bit. So we got into, again, how his process could work, because, again, I don't know the specifics of that particular company that he told me about. And we talked about how you gradually take ownership over these vesting schedules through your 401k over the course of your employment. So, Dave, we talked about retirement plan vesting following a time-based schedule, because, again, if he were to quit before that schedule had essentially vested, then he's like walking away from that extra amount of money that might be sitting there. I told him that, the contributions you're making, like the $20,000, $25,000, et cetera, per year that you can be doing based on your age, because he was over 50. I said, look, those contributions don't apply to what I'm talking about. This is something separate, because that money's yours and they can't take that. That's your money. So if you quit, that balance on that statement is yours. But when it comes back to this matching money, which, again, in his case, because he's been there so long, could be a significant amount of money, he needs to find out the vesting schedule, because that's going to determine whether that extra amount of money is his or not. And so there are two schedules, if you will, that you have to consider if you've got vesting. All right. So the first one, Dave, is a cliff schedule. And so I explained to him, think about it like this. It's all or nothing. If you quit before working the number of years that your employer requires, you lose all the money. But once you pass that threshold, that cliff, essentially you don't fall off of it. Okay, you get to keep it all. Alternatively, your plan may use something called a graded schedule that unlocks a percent of that matching money for every month or year that you've been there. This all depends on the plan design. So let me give you an example. Let's say your plan follows a 4-year graded schedule. Let's say it unlocks 25% of those contributions per year before you qualify to keep everything after the 4 years. So let's say that you've gotten $10,000 a year from your employer for the retirement plan, and after a couple of years, you have $20,000 sitting in this other bucket, this other pocket, and you quit. Well, if your plan has, say, a 3-year cliff, then you would forfeit all the $20,000. That's it. It's gone. But if your plan used a 4-year graded schedule, well, in this case, you get 50% of the employer contribution 2 out of the 4 years. And so you get to keep $10,000. So you got to get clear about this. Because after you reach the required years of employment, all the future contributions that they're making on your behalf, so in Dave's case, this could be the case. He's been there so long, 100% is all his. So I let Dave know that there are federal rules that cap the amount of time that workplace retirement plans can require you to stay with an employer to become fully vested. And then we talked about this other rule that he must be fully vested by the time he reaches his target retirement age that's listed in the plan. So it's another question I told him he needed to ask on Monday, which was if your 401k has a target date of 65 and you join the plan at age 63, well, you'll be fully vested within those 2 years when you turn age 65. So in his case, this is another one that might have an age requirement that, again, given his age, may not work. So he might want to time this around his birthday if he could do that. Additionally, again, this stuff just keeps mounting on top. If your employer shuts down the retirement plan, so like in his case, they're cutting people, they're laying off, he's stressed out about it. He's worried about the company shutting down potentially here. Well, if they do that, if they shut down the retirement plan, as I explained to him, he becomes immediately 100% vested for all those contributions that he made and also the employer made. That's the law. If your employer lays off more than 20% of the employees participating in that plan, and that's a question because not everybody participates, all employees are fully vested. Next, I asked Dave if he knew what his options were with his benefits at work. Well, like what he said. And I said, well, we just talked about your 401k. Can you leave it in your plan if you were to leave work? I don't know. Why would I do that? Well, because there's some protections around that. How are the investment choices? Started getting into that. We talked about him being able to roll it over into his own self-directed IRA at the two custodians we work with. We work with Schwab and Fidelity. He also could, if he got a part-time job, maybe he could roll that to his new employer plan. Or he could think about withdrawing it and start taking advantage of Roth conversions right now. So since Dave is 61, I let him know that any withdrawals will face ordinary income taxes, but he wouldn't have any early withdrawal penalty because he's over age 59 and a half. So that's nice. I told him to check with his HR to confirm all these options we've been talking about and think about the trade-offs when he looks at each of these choices. Then we talked about his health savings account, this thing called HSA. I let him know that he might be able to leave the money in his old account, or he could roll it over to a new HSA. He should check with his HR for details, but that money is his, even if he leaves his job. So there was no rush to spend it, even though he thought he had to. I encouraged him to look into investing that money. So a lot of you can open up a brokerage account. Move that HSA account into that brokerage account and then buy something like an S&P 500 index fund and let it just sit there for 15, 20 years until you need it and use it for long-term care. You don't have long-term care insurance? Well, it's a great way to build a nice little nest egg that's tax-free that you can use for the possibility of long-term care. And then if you don't need it, well, name a beneficiary and they'll receive it. We talked about his flexible spending account, his FSA. Hope you're writing all these little acronyms down, seeing if you have these things. Just more money. I let him know that that FSA money is typically use it or lose it, meaning that if he doesn't spend it now before he quits in his birthday in February next year, he's going to leave all that money in that account and forfeit it to the employer, which he doesn't want to do. So anyway, check with your HR to find out the answer to these questions, because maybe you could have a little Christmas gift right now. Are you thinking of retiring in the next 6 months? Give us a call right now to get my checklist. We've designed a retirement checklist. It's literally a really easy read. I can email this to you right now. It walks through some things you just might want to know based on all of our experience. Happy to give this to you this morning. Call this number right now. We're here on a Saturday answering the phone. Talk to Phil, Lucas, Nick. They're just waiting for you to call them. 866-PROTECT. 866-PROTECT. Call us right now. 866-PROTECT. Find out what you don't know. Coming up next, it is time for our popular They Say segment, where they say once you leave the company, you lose your PTO. Is that true? And where should you get your medical and health care benefits if you're under 65? So much more to know. You don't want to miss it. You're listening to Protect Your Assets Show with me, David Hollander. We'll be right back.
Take the first step toward reaching your financial goals and get the information that can help you live a confident retirement. That first step is going to pyaevents.com and signing up for our next free event. That's pyaevents.com. Now, back to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, the Sandman.
Welcome back. Anyways, check out our podcast if you want to know what's going to go on with the market. Are we in a bubble right now? What's going to happen? What should you do with your money next year? Well, you got to check out our podcast. I covered that this morning. So we're talking this morning about retirement because you see this past week we met with a couple folks, one of them at our dinner at Trader Vic's, who happened to ask me about leaving work next year. He's just had it, 61 years old. He's tired about work. He's a little scared because they're laying people off, and he doesn't know if he's next. Market's up right now. Stocks are doing well. And he's just wondering, should he keep going or should he stop? Can he stop? So, even if you love your job, why leave these questions unanswered? Why take the risk? Right? We all sort of feel this, I don't want to say bubble, but, hey, values are up there. If these things can happen, history repeats itself, all those things. Is now the time for you. Now it's time for one of our fan favorite parts of the show. This is our They Say segment where we debunk common myths, half-truths, and sometimes just bad advice that they say.
Who are they? What do they know that I don't? And what are they saying this week? Here's David Hollander, the Sandman's answer.
All right, so here's one they said this week. They say that once you leave your company, you lose all your PTO, paid time off. Is this really true? And where should you get your health care in retirement? I am an attorney, so I can say it depends. It depends on what state you live in, actually. In California, it's required that companies pay employees for their unused PTO when you leave your company. So what is exactly unused PTO? This is where, of course, the details are the details, right? Unused PTO is paid time off that you have earned while working at that company, but you haven't yet taken. While no federal or state law requires companies to offer PTO to their employees, many businesses choose to have a PTO policy. Why? Well, it improves your well-being and your job satisfaction. It's a benefit. A company's PTO policy may include, this is where we're going to write these things down, vacation leave, your sick time, holidays, personal days, family or medical leave. Many companies have policies that allow you to accrue PTO by the hour, by the day, by the week, or a pay period. For example, an employee may earn 5 hours of PTO every 2 weeks. Some companies allow employees to accrue more PTO the longer they stay with a particular company. So in Dave's case, we're talking about 25 years there. And we talked about that. Here's another example. Many who are there, say, for more than 5 years. Once they cross that 5-year benchmark, then they might get 5 weeks of annual PTO that accrues after that period of time. So you really got to figure out the details. So I want to give you some examples that we've come across with folks as we go through this with them, because you might want to write these down and just ask the questions about how it works and what are the calcs. So then you have some information where you can run some numbers. All right. So let's go through some examples here that we've seen. The first, and again, you could write these down, just you can check it out and see what you have. The first is something called an accrual cap. And some companies will limit how much PTO you can accrue. Let me give you an example. A company may allow you to earn no more than 4 weeks of PTO at a time, and then they cap you. That's it. And after you reach that cap, you can't earn any more PTO until you use that up on vacations or things like that. Okay, so that's called an accrual cap. Is there other types? Yes. There's the accrual rollover. Some companies allow you to carry over any accrued PTO. For example, at the end of, say, 2025, your company could allow you, this is how you could ask the question, right? So it's not obvious what you're up to. Do you allow us to roll over any of my unused PTOs I've accrued this year? Some companies will roll over policies that allow you to, say, move it all. Some will limit the amount that they'll allow you to carry over. So again, this is where this gets really complex because you might get like 20% of what you're entitled to. So maybe you got some time here. You use it up in the last 17, 18 days of this month. Many companies use this policy to give employees flexibility with their PTO and encourage you to take time off. So again, it's the holidays. Maybe you take some time off now. Then this gets into another one that I've seen. It's called the use it or lose it policy. The use it or lose it policy requires you to take your PTO during a specific time frame. And if you don't use your PTO during this time frame, well, then you lose it. You forfeit all that accrual. All that money is gone. I'll give you an example. Your company might require you to use all your annual 3 weeks you built up this year by 12/31, 18 days away from now. If you don't, sorry, it's gone. You lost it. I know, you don't want to take the time off right now because there's so much to do, right? A big benefit to consider is your health insurance coverage. This was a big one for Dave because he was 61. And it really depends on your age. So in Dave's case, because he's under 65, he could try to get coverage for himself and his wife through his spouse's employer. I also talked to him about COBRA. What's COBRA? Is that a snake? No. COBRA is something that you get through the government. It's your old employer's health insurance, and you're entitled up to 18 months of coverage. It's expensive, but at least you'll have something if you were to quit, say, in January. If you're over 65, you'll need to know which Medicare option is best for you. You want to factor in the monthly cost and exposure you might have from pre-existing illnesses, out-of-pocket expenses, and all the options that are around, say, in your particular town. You might want to do a HMO, for instance, as opposed to a PPO, just because there's better care. It just really depends where you live. I recommend you shop around for a policy. You can buy a policy for yourself through the public marketplace. For instance, the Affordable Care Act. Some people even qualify for government-provided subsidies, depending on your income. You could get premium tax credits. Another option is to look to your local health insurance agent, professional association, and other so-called private exchanges that offer plans from multiple carriers. I recommend that our clients reshop their policies annually because things change every year. And I'd recommend that you go back and listen to my podcast on Medicare. I do a whole show on this subject. I've done it for years. You can go back to where you get your podcast, Protect Your Assets, Medicare. Listen to it. And if you need help with this, we can refer you over to somebody. I hope this information was helpful to you, but imagine if you got advice that was specifically tailored to you. If you boil it down, our mission here at the Liberty Group is to help you protect your money and your lifestyle so you can remain financially independent in retirement. It's easy, it's painless, it's complimentary, and we do all the heavy lifting for you. So if you just want to have a conversation, call 866-PROTECT. I've put together this morning a retirement checklist. This is fresh, off the press, in a PDF. I can email it to you now. Call my guys, Phil, Ryan, Nick. They're sitting around Lucas, ready to help you. Call us, 866-PROTECT. Get your copy, my copy of the retirement checklist right now, 866-PROTECT.
If you missed any of Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, all you have to do is go to pyaradio.com where you can download or listen to our latest shows for free. Just go to pyaradio.com on your computer or mobile device when it's most convenient for you. That's pyaradio.com. Now back to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, the Sandman.
Welcome back. I am David Hollander, also known as the Sandman around here, and you are listening to Protect Your Assets. And if you have assets and you want to protect them, Well, glad you're listening to the show today because that's what we talk about. In this case, all those retirement benefits and employee benefits that you frankly have if you work at a company, your PTO, your HSAs, FSAs. We've covered all that this morning. And if you are ready or thinking about calling it quits, you are asking yourself questions like, can I do it? What do I do with all those benefits and things that I have? Well, we've covered that this morning. You don't want to go at this blindly. Today we're talking about what to do if you're about to quit your job. And this last one could be a big one. If you're lucky enough to have a pension. This past week we had some folks coming in and they had a pension. Both these guys did. And they had three options when it came to the pensions. Option number one, leave the pension. This was a defined benefit plan if you want to get fancy. And they could elect to receive monthly distributions that would go right to their bank account for the rest of their life. But understand that that death benefit comes with what we call a mortality risk, meaning that if, in this case, the individual was to pass away, that his spouse might not get the benefit if he chose the wrong one. Likewise, if they both were beneficiaries of this plan, they're both getting income, and then they both didn't live out their full life expectancy. What was another option they had? They could annuitize it. They could annuitize that defined benefit plan, and with higher rates today, mortality risk, as I just explained, and or any worry that your old company could become insolvent. You might be able to use a special life insurance product known as, you might want to write this down, it's called a copycat annuity. This qualifies for a tax-deferred transfer of your pension to another insurance company where you control it. And you can design it so it mirrors the benefits that you would have had at your other company had they stayed in business. You can also control the death benefits. So if something were to happen, it could pay a lump sum to somebody else, like your kids, for instance. And this comes to mind because we had someone by the name of Janet recently here locally in Oakland. And so we were looking at her options there. And because of the market and interest rates today, which she was able to do better on her own and control her destiny and give more to her family if something happened to her. These are all things that were important to her. Or there's another option you could go with, option 3, the cash out option. A lot of defined benefit plans allow you to take control of that investment by transferring that balance to a IRA or something called a registered account like a LIRA. And you can do this without any tax consequences. I love when people ask me that question, well, I don't want to pay all the tax. You could do it without tax. They look at me like, really? What about a 457? Yes, you can. As long as you do it right, you can defer the taxes just like you were doing through the defined plan. I know there's a lot to think about here. This is your first time trying it. You don't want to jump out of that airplane and the parachute cord doesn't work, right? No. With the stock market being at all-time highs, when will this bubble burst? And when it does, is it going to take your net worth with you? And if it did, will you then have to work longer just to get back to where you are today? Ask yourself that question. Be honest with yourself. And maybe you don't know. That's what started this whole conversation today. So if you have questions like that, if you want to stop working, if you want to do something else, I mean, think about that. Why? Why are you working? What are you doing? Why are you taking all that risk? Well, you can remove that gray area right now. We can show you what we can do. We can also give you this checklist this morning. This checklist is great. Literally 3 minutes. You can go through it quickly. We'll email it to you right now. My guys are here right now, ready to talk to you. You got Phil, Nick, and Lucas back there. Call them. 866-PROTECT. 866-PROTECT. After we do that, if you want, you can get a free 15-minute checkup to see if your person's really taking care of you. You're paying someone somewhere to do this. It's not free. So find out what that is and if you can do better. Get a second opinion. 866-776-8328. I'll give it to you one more time. 866-776-8328. I'd like to give a big thanks to the Protect Your Assets team for a great year. What a great show today. My executive producer and network manager, Kevin Renfer, and all my fabulous producers back there, Phil, Zach, Nick, Ryan. Thanks, guys, because without my team, I'm just another pretty voice on the radio. You have been listening to the Protect Your Assets show. I am David Hollander, the Sandman. Go out and make the rest of your life the best of your life.
Investment advisory services are offered through Liberty Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. The strategies mentioned are not suitable for everyone. The information expressed does not consider your specific situation or objectives and may not be appropriate for all investors. Past performance is not indicative of future results. To better understand the risk associated with investing and how it reacts to different market conditions, listeners should always consult with their qualified investment professionals, financial advisors, legal or tax specialists, and conduct their due diligence before making any financial decisions or taking any action. The legal information provided on the air is not intended to substitute for callers hiring their lawyers to advise them about personal legal matters. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Liberty Group LLC paid for the following program, and the host's views and opinions do not represent those of the station or its ownership. California Life Agent number 048569. Persons engaging the services of one affiliate of Liberty Group LLC companies should be aware that each company is operated separately. You're listening to the Protect Your Assets Radio Network.